Hello again, I'm Angie, and I'm creating a gamified productivity app called Cosy. Welcome to the second devlog. Thank you so much for the support from my first video. I got to chat with a couple developers, artists, and some other new YouTubers, and you guys really motivated me to keep at it when development gets hard. And it got pretty hard this week. I was unexpectedly busy and probably next week too, so I couldn't work on the app as much. But I did make some progress, and I'm going to share them with you today. I also realized last week I didn't tell you what the app will be called, so this time I'm sure to tell you in the beginning. It's Cosy Desk, and I hope your desks will always be cozy. Alright, to summarize where we left off, I had created some assets and set them up in Unity. I could move the player around and go behind and in front of objects, and the next step is to elongate the room so that there's more space to add furniture. This is actually really easy. I just needed to stretch the walls and the floor sideways and limit what the camera can see. So ideally, the camera is always centered to the player and follows the player around. This will look weird in Unity, but it made more sense to me when I think about it like I'm making a set for a movie. I just need the camera to do what I want all the time. I followed 2 really good tutorial videos by Lost Relic Games to do this. Basically, the camera needs to follow the position of the player, but also have some offset so that we don't see below the room. Also, we need to put limits on where the camera can go, because if the camera only purely followed the player, we will see lots of blue screen, which is the camera background color. The next thing I do is make the UI also follow the camera. This again is pretty straightforward, but this was where I got stuck the longest, because up until now the world that I see in scene view, where I can see everything and change the position of objects, doesn't correspond to what I see when the game is played or in game view. I need to fix this discrepancy. Also, sometimes I couldn't see the buttons unless I'm on full screen. I realized this can be fixed by changing the render mode from screen space overlay to world space. The definitions of these can be found in the Unity documentation and in many Stack Exchange threads, and I encourage you to read them if you really want to know, because to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on what they are and why it works. In my understanding, these render modes are applied to what is called a canvas, which, since I'm creating a Unity 2D project, is like a 2D layer in 3D space. In Unity, even if you're creating a 2D project, you're still actually in a 3D world. The Z-axis is always there for you to manipulate, but the camera will be looking at your world head-on, so that everything appears 2D. You can have multiple canvases, and I'm sure there's a best practice for these, but so far I have one canvas for UI elements, so things like buttons, and another canvas for everything else. Then the way these canvases are rendered or seen by the camera can be different. There are 3 choices. In screen space overlay, the button is rendered on top of the screen and will change location when the screen resolution is changed. In screen space camera, the button is rendered at some specific distance away from the camera. And in world space, the button is treated like an object in the world, so like a furniture. I suppose then, since I want to see the same thing in scene mode and game mode, changing the render mode to world space fixed it. And if I want to use a different render mode, I had to deal with the discrepancy. Again, I'm not sure what the best practice is, but for now, this is what I want, because at least I know the location of the UI buttons are correct in both. If you know where I can learn Unity and C# best practices, please let me know. And now with the camera and movements shaping up well, it is time to tackle the time tracking scene. There will be 2 modes, the stopwatch and a countdown, but I think I'll change the names and the icons for these in the future because I got really confused on which one's which. But anyway, I tried to do the simpler one first, the stopwatch. For my plans, I want the character to be teleported from anywhere in the room to be in between the chair and the table, with the timer above the player, 3 new buttons that let you pause, add a tag, and finish the timer. And I also want the rest of the room to be cut off so that the character is in focus, like the user. So the tasks that I need to do are, the camera needs to know where the table is and transform its position there. Then the current UI needs to be hidden, and the new UI, the buttons and the frame that hides the room, is visible. and the character needs to know where the table and the chair pivot points are and lodge itself between them. And I need to add an animation for the character, and also, of course, the timer and the buttons need to work. I had completely underestimated how many different things are needed to be done here, which I think is gonna be a recurring theme. I saw a Twitter thread by Rami Ismail, a game dev, explaining how to build the dice in a game, and it's actually really complicated. And I feel the same way with this app, even though it didn't seem complicated. And the things that I'm doing are really simple. But I'm glad now, at least, that I'm relying less and less on tutorials, and I'm getting a little bit more used to using Unity the software combined with C# programming. I'm not a complete beginner in programming. I know some Python, Java, and Kotlin, but still, in all of those, you don't ever have an interface like Unity that really changes the way you code. Like, for example, a button, when clicked, can implement multiple different functions that are tied to different scenes, which can range from a camera to canvases and to other objects too. Again, I'm pretty sure what I'm doing is not a best practice since I'm not even consistent with what I do. I guess it might be worth reading my code again or other people's Unity projects to get better at this. Anyway, after some experimentation with pivot points, and because of the problem with the size of the assets that I mentioned in my first devlog, I used magic numbers for all of these problems, which is a quick fix, but it will have to be changed. Magic numbers, for those who don't know, are numbers that you type in yourself as a programmer into the code. So for example, the coordinates the player will be when the timer is running. Ideally, I'd want the code to automatically figure out where the player should be based on the location of the desk and the chair, because they can be anywhere in the room. Again, these have to be changed. And then, since I had already downloaded some free game assets from following a past tutorial, I used them to get the scripting correct, the hiding and unhiding of UI, for example, before jumping back to Procreate and making some simple assets. So now we have a new look to the scene. And also, since I had been drawing plenty this month, I decided to add some more decorations to the room too. I couldn't wait to work on that part of the app, but I know it will be super difficult. So for now, I'm gonna drag and drop to my heart's content. That's it for this week, and again, thank you so much for your support. I hope you have a good weekend and see you next week.